Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? Hi, I'm Nathan Mercero, CEO of Planning Alternatives. We're a disruptive brand in the financial planning space with a point of view that true wealth has nothing to do with money. Growing up in a small town in Canada, I experienced examples of families with money and without. It started me on this journey of understanding wealth and the idea that spending a day in a canoe with someone could be one of the best investments you could make. Join me as I sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, rule breakers, and friends to discover their perspective of true wealth. And maybe you'll start to shift yours. Well, I'm delighted today to be joined by Stephen George. Stephen is an entrepreneur with a significant and impressive career. Stephen, welcome to Day in a Canoe. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you've been a wealth creator, but you've also dialed into what purpose and meaning mean in life and how that wealth and financial resource can align to that end.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. If you wouldn't mind just giving our listeners a background of some of the highlights in your professional journey and maybe some of the things that you learned along the way.
So I started my career, fortunately, in startup world, and I just haven't been able to escape it since. I was in college, had an internship that quickly turned into a sprint to an IPO with Groupon, and was able to kind of be, the non-technical man of every hat, many hats, and got to see that company grow from 5 to I think 11,000 when we IPO'd 36 months later. So it taught me a lot and gave me I think a crash course into growing a business. And then from there wanted to travel the world. So traveled the world for a number of years. And about 40 countries, made my way back to the States and landed in Los Angeles, built a business there, met my wife, the whole family now. So, and then building another company. So I love that, I can't escape it.
Looking back, did you have that entrepreneurial itch at an early life stage? And what created your curiosity around business development?
Yeah, I mean, I'm back in Chicago right now, where I grew up, and visiting family. And, I always love spending time with my siblings because we were always starting little businesses. We were always selling something, Coca-Cola ices, on the street, or we were reselling sandwiches from the local sandwich shop at school, like anything to kind of build a business. I don't know, we always were doing that. And I'm one of 4. And so I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and we did a lot of that kind of stuff together. So I feel like, we were always unofficially entrepreneurial.
One of the beliefs I have is that if you can run a good lemonade stand early in life, you have some core skills for the business world later. Now, as you went into the Groupon experience, that was like a fire hose of ramp up and activity, especially on the people side. What did you observe as problems that get solved? Because sometimes there's obstacles that entrepreneurs have, and they just have to constantly pivot. And then related to that is, what are the takeaways from that experience that you still carry with you today?
Yeah, it definitely was a fire hose. I loved it. I was 20 years old at the time when I first started that internship at the company prior to Groupon, which was called The Point, and the name was changed. So I definitely just wanted to learn as much as I could. I was in that college mindset of I just want to soak up, and I thought I could just outwork everyone, even though I wasn't smarter than everyone. And I think that allowed me to, just learn a lot of aspects of a company and just building a business. And yeah, I kind of plugged in where I could contribute, in that company. And I think it was so much fun, that time. And I think the team was so energetic about what we were doing, that it made it not feel like work. And I think that's the best way. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I learned. But I think the takeaways are really, when I look at the business, looking back, Groupon had a crazy story, great rise, and then, tapered off a bit. But I think that the ability to understand that businesses fundamentally are trying to kind of, navigate through the same challenges all over the world, which is why we were able to, I think, gain so much traction even internationally. And then consumers are interested in just discovery and new experiences. I think that allowed us to grow that business really quickly. So I think I've taken that to anything I've been excited about since, has been about the experience. And
Oh, those are great takeaways. Now, you mentioned after Groupon, you took time to travel the world. Tell me about that.
I thought it was a 2-week vacation. I went to visit my younger sister. She was working in South Africa. So I flew over there and I ended up staying in Africa for almost a year. Um, I started realizing like there's so many unique cultures and experiences. And I wanted to kind of get out of the American mindset, and like that comfort and just like do things and meet people. And so I didn't really plan much. I just kind of went from one place to the next. I showed up in Arusha at the bottom of Kilimanjaro and like met someone and they're like, "Hey, you want to climb Kilimanjaro tomorrow?" And so I just got some gear and climbed it the next day. So I feel like that, is in me to just jump into something if it's interesting and seems like a great experience, and it served me well.
It sounds like you're in tune to serendipity, which is this unusual but yet profound magical timing and intersection of time and space and people. I know in my life it shows up in really interesting ways. I'm curious if that resonates with you.
Yeah, I look for magical moments. I think like brands can create those, you can create those. And so I'm always just in search of those. I think that, those are the stories you remember. You don't necessarily remember like the discount, or you don't remember, you know, um, just like the financial win as much as you do the experience. You talk about the experience, you want to share it, it gets passed down, it gets shared with others. And it just keeps coming back. And so like, I think that definitely, in my life, I've been fortunate to have some incredible experiences, and I am focused now on like allowing others to have more of those. And that's kind of what led me into the business I've been working on now. But
And what is the business that you're focused on right now? What is that about?
so it's called Amaze. It's a membership platform. So we help brands launch, monetize, and optimize membership. And it's really, membership is about creating a community, building long-term relationships, and having magical moments. I think I look back at Groupon and I look at, kind of the decade after launching Groupon, and it became very transactional. It allowed people to be comfortable feeling very transactional and dealing in a very transactional way, because brands would just, you spend this much, you get this many points. And it just felt like, put in your phone number and that's what they need to know about you. They don't really need to know anything personal and get to know you as an individual. And so I feel like there's a big opportunity there. And you're seeing, especially post-pandemic, that community is really important to people, especially, you think of Gen Z. It's about kind of like a brand understanding you and shared and aligned values, and more than just purchasing something because it's trendy. I think, values matter. And so, want more brands to be able to do that and focus on their business, and focus on the connection. So we're building the technology to allow for that.
And so unpack the user experience and how they would anchor with the Amaze platform.
From a consumer experience, we issue digital membership cards. They sit in your Apple and Google Wallet. So you're able to get the tools that an app offer, which is like, the main two are location-based targeting and push notifications, without introducing a new app, and with a tool that people are familiar with. There's billions of users every day actively using their Apple and Google wallets, because, right, you store important information in there. You have push on because if someone's, using your credit card, you want to know. And location-based targeting, when you pull up to the airport, your boarding pass pops up. So those are convenience factors that people like. And so a brand can kind of Trojan horse into that and say, look, I'm going to issue a digital card, and that's going to give me kind of the consumer products. But really, this is a data play. This is understanding and allowing brands to understand what a magical moment is to each individual and create that. Because you need a lot of data blended together. Transactional is not enough. You need event data. You need, just like all that first party, personalized data. And so we're just kind of giving a single tool, and how you like to be communicated with and engaged with, all in one platform.
So the magical moments, is that what creates the community? Meaning you're finding other peers or colleagues, people that are celebrating or focused on a common experience?
No, we're a white label B2B, B2B2C platform. So, the brand is building a community, whether that's, our focus is on like hospitality, retail, sports and entertainment. So, it's that you're part of a community. I'm from Chicago. I'm a Cubs fan. It's a strong community. I don't get as much attention while I live in Los Angeles. And so like, I still want to be engaged, but in the right way, right? I don't need to know about every game. I need to know about when they're in LA. I need to know, they should know that I just had a baby. So I want, maybe certain merchandise over the coming year. And so like those personal interactions can exist if you understand, a blend of different types of data. And we're trying to give that in a very actionable way.
Circling back to your personal experience, what is your true north personally, and how does that show up in your life or your work? And by true north, I mean what your values are, what you believe is most important in life, what we call true wealth, and what's available to all of us, but sometimes we don't see it because we're so hunkered down in the here and now or whatever our current mindset is. What does true wealth mean to you as it relates to your direction for the future?
I want to spend as much quality time as I can with my family, my kids, my wife, but also, my siblings, my dad, like those different family units. Like I want to spend as much time. And so I want it to be as, meaningful. And I want it to be as kind of special as I can make it. And so I think technology can really help with that. I think today AI can be very beneficial to help with the human connection. And I don't want it to replace it. I'm not trying to build technology to replace human interactions. I'm trying to build it so they can empower human interactions and human connection.
Just to pause on that point, which is a great one, what would be examples of how AI can elevate human connection?
My siblings and I'll keep on the Cubs. When I brought my wife and kids to Chicago recently, and I wish I planned ahead, but we still made it happen. Like we all went to a Cubs game. It was like 15 of us, whole family. And I feel like I wish I could have planned it better. I could have organized it. We could have made it, a bit more special, around like the merchandise I was able to get, and, potentially like an experience in Wrigley, some sort of like access that you just can't scramble and get, but they offer. If you kind of know about it, you plan ahead. And I feel like a brand can do that and make it so much more meaningful and impactful. And it's hard for me to get my kids to be Cubs fans living in Los Angeles. So
getting back to your purpose, it sounds like time is the currency that you really treasure and protect. Is that a fair statement?
yeah, in my life right now, my father's having some pretty serious health issues. So I'm spending a lot of time here. It's unfortunate the pandemic happened kind of prior to this, because I feel like I didn't get the time I would have liked to. And having small children, we didn't travel as much. So yeah, I'm really realizing that, there's not a lot of time.
And I see in the notes that I have that you work with your wife.
I do. We came up with this concept together for Amaze. We work on every aspect of our lives together, but we did start this company together. She's taking a more kind of active role with our daughter, who has only, a year and a half left at home. moving forward. But yeah, we worked on building this business.
My wife and I took a vow early that we would not work together. We have adjusted that vow and we started working together about a year and a half ago, and it's going really well. It's been surprising. Many good outcomes have happened. I'm curious what your experience working so close with someone you love and you're, literally in the business together. What is that like for those listeners that might be in that situation?
So my wife comes from a family business, and so I think that's just natural. Every dinner table conversation is about their family business. Her father's been working for their company and built their company it's their 50-year anniversary this year. And so I feel like that's all she knows. She worked at her family business for about a decade prior to us getting together. And so, yeah, I think she knows how to kind of navigate that. And I've learned to just embrace it.
Yeah, you can plan your day and then your day shows up and plans you sometimes. So it's about pivoting and then good communication, being flexible. I found that Michelle and I do have to guard how much time we can spend talking about the business because, once again, it is a time-consuming aspect. But at the same time, that's where a lot of creative energy can show up in those conversations. So it's understanding the guardrails and helping each other make sure they're not too entrenched in their roles to not take care of themselves and such. So we find ourselves reminding each other of that. Final question, as you think about where you're headed, how much you value your family, your time, what do you want to see happen in life? So if we were to revisit our conversation 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what is most important to you in this next 10 to 20 year window that you want to make sure happens with purpose and meaning for yourself and your family?
I think the next decade for me, as I'm getting closer and closer to 40, is focus on health. I feel like I've neglected it a bit in the last decade, and I want to focus on that. So I hope that I can say that I've really prioritized that because I want to have more time with my kids. I want to see them, they're 3 and 5 right now, and I want to see them, graduating from high school and off to college. So, I think that's a big focus. Obviously the business, very excited about it right now. I see that being, a platform for millions of brands and consumers to benefit from. I hope that we can really continue to execute on that. And I think just enjoy life. This is a different phase the last couple of years that, I've entered into than the previous decade. So,
well, Stephen, you have a great story and a great perspective that sometimes we have to go through hard times to see what is most valuable in life. And it sounds like you've had this awareness at an early life stage. So I commend you for that. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us and hang out in the metaphorical canoe today, and wish you the best and all that's ahead.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. To discover what wealth means to you, please take our assessment at planningalt.com.